Welcome back to the WatchTower Film Podcast.
How you doing?
We're not the most conventional of podcasts. We think the podcast movement is dull and needs new life. And I don't really want to know what you guys think, but I want to know what you guys think, if you know what I mean. Let's get experimental here.
What do I think? What I think from the outside, what I think from the inside.
It's really a matter of both. Thus is life.
This is life. It's kind of like a window, you know. You see through it, but you really can't if it's closed, you know.
Shut up, he's thinking.
What are you thinking, Nilo? Keep rubbing your lips.
Too much lip gloss.
I mean, this film just talks, you know?
It just talks. It talks and it sings and it whispers.
And it's just flowing.
And it tickles your throat.
It reminds me of a story about a guy who was walking his fish.
Just
Where was he walking it to? That's the real question.
rolling his fish.
Why was he walking?
Maybe we're all walking fish.
I've thought about this too much. Too many times.
Don't think about it too much.
I've hurt
That
myself,
defeats the
actually.
purpose.
I know.
Maybe you
It's
should just
just-
walk your fish.
It's just so hard being better than everybody and nobody understanding it.
Maybe Godard stole his style from me. How come you don't ask him that?
Maybe he the fish.
Maybe fish fuck on water.
Maybe fish fucking water. And we shouldn't drink water.
So,
So on that note, welcome back to the WatchTower Film Podcast, the
Welcome
film
back.
review podcast on the Towercast Network by Cinephiles for Cinephiles.
Like
I'm
us.
taking these fucking glasses off because I can't see a damn thing. We hope you liked our... That's fine, baby doll. You do you.
Yeah,
We
you-
hope you liked our French New Wave version of the intro.
We need to add some
I
jazz
think
on
it
that
captured-
bitch.
We do. We
and,
should.
and some
Really
cigarettes.
sassy jazz.
And we had a smoke overlay like we're smoking
Yeah.
cigarettes. Just like...
One after the other.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the
Frenchy
continuation of our series of international cinema.
Yes.
And we left off with Polish New Wave, and then now we're getting into the French New Wave. So if you haven't gone back and listened to the new series, we started off with Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai.
Oh, yes, we did.
And then, Andre Vida's Ashes and Diamonds. And today we're going to talk about something that, quite frankly, that's French New Wave right there. That's just leave it there.
Yeah.
Leave it there. Let's close in on it. And we're breaking the 180-degree rule. That's just...
And that's the take.
Before I introduce the film, we're going to go and introduce my fellow co-host, Mr. Michael the Law, offering a cinematography perspective.
I believe what you shouldn't believe.
And that's what you all should believe.
You know, Bob Dylan was really French New Wave. I'm reminded of that elevator scene from A Complete Unknown, where he's like, "Well,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
what did you want to be? Whatever they don't want me to be."
Yeah.
Like,
That's cool.
What's great about that is that you could really feel the like teenage angst.
Yeah.
Even though it's like, is this cool or are you just being a dick?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the question, though.
That's
kind of the
new
question.
wave.
Yeah,
That's all new wave is. But
Mr. Jean-Luc Castro offering an acting perspective.
I'm going to try to give the next perspective on this one.
ready? 3, 2, 1, act.
Be funny. Oh, he did the bogey. He did the bogey.
Biggie. Biggie.
Mr. Austin, you gotta make sure we're sounding good on the ones and twos back there.
Thank you, sir.
And though he may have thought that we forgot about him, we don't forget about Mr. Eric C.K. Nunez.
Where you at?
Off and about in La La Land doing some shit.
Yes, he is.
La Land.
I hear a rumor, though, that he may be here for next episode.
Oh,
Wait, but are we recording out of sequence?
No. We're actually recording in real time.
Yeah.
Like it was.
It's real.
Oh, shut it out! No, we're recording in sequence.
Oh, that's awesome.
But he's here with us. in spirit.
Shout out to him. Shout out to Danny, fellow
Yeah.
frequent contributor to the pod.
And shout out to the people who like and subscribe. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe so you can listen to us every week.
This is why I like this man.
Yeah,
Are
right now.
We are recording as often as possible. Leave it there. Tuesday. We're recording as often as possible.
Yeah.
And this week is a testament to that because
Absolutely.
we care about releasing every week and having cinema released on the world every week.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely. But
please
no, trust me when I say
tuned.
like we love this, we love doing this, even if we had 0 viewers, and we appreciate you guys checking it out because it just means that there's other cinephiles out there. Like
Absolutely.
we are our fellow Mr. Dalao was on the DMP podcast.
Experience.
It's actually a
DMP
pretty good
Experience.
episode.
That's what it's called. And I checked out the episode, and it was so cool because it was these kids who like we were once DMP kids, so I know exactly what them sitting in that seat looks like.
And you'll probably see these lovely faces very
But
soon on the DMP
they
Experience.
actually said, at least one of the co-hosts actually said, like, I love your guys' podcast. Like, I listen to it all the time.
Yeah.
That was very sweet. So thank you guys. Thank you.
Yeah,
for
no,
checking
thank
it
you
out.
guys for checking it out and check out that podcast. It's really good to, I guess, talk to people and let them know that this is like the trajectory we all have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Part of what I was trying to tell them, and I really appreciate about our podcast, is that we've only gotten better as filmmakers because, again, we've respected this idea of like you need to watch great films to make great films.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, it's influenced all of us. And I mean, if you go from like episode 1 where we're just starting this whole thing and just saying, hey, let's just have fun and watch movies together, and then it's gotten all the way here, which is like what we're 130 in or
I
something.
think a little more now.
Yeah.
Good cinema begets good cinema.
Yeah,
And I think
and
we've
then-
learned that.
I mean, from then I've felt so much growth, and it's crazy because it hasn't been like always being on set, but every time I get on set, I'm incorporating a new idea that I've seen from films like this. And I mean,
But I like
again,
what you said on their podcast about like, don't feel hopeless because not everybody wants to push you down. Like there are people out there who want to lift you up and make sure you succeed in this kind of industry and stuff like that. So, I think that's really cool. Go check out the DMP Experience podcast. I think right now they're only on YouTube. I could be wrong. I only saw it on YouTube.
It's only on YouTube?
Yeah, I think so. But follow them on Instagram and stuff like that. So then check them out. They got a
forget-
good little production going, man. We didn't have that good of a production till like fucking 50 episodes in or something.
like it's crazy because like even with our podcast, we started in like your
My
old house,
grandma's,
your grandma's place, and had to upgrade slowly to like even when we got like
Our small office,
it was like the podcast set, and it was that red curtain.
It was just the red curtain.
And then it's like when I went over there, they got lights for the lights, like the light up lights and
the light up lights.
Yeah, no, it's
I like
crazy.
light up lights.
They have
Austin likes light
that
up
and the
lights.
red curtain, and it's funny because I forgot what the lady was who was there, but it was like unlock the door for me, and she was saying like, oh yeah, they put all red. They want to be edgy. And I'm like,
Oh, that's edgy?
Yeah, I was like, that's
That's
edgy.
funny.
And then I was like, we were edgy. We were edgy before
We
it
were
was
edgy.
edgy.
We
yeah.
were new wave before we were.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was edging before it was.
You were.
edge.
I think it's great. I think it's great. Again, it's one of those things where you look back and you think, oh, we left something behind. The spirit of like do it yourself. I was talking to Via about that. Their advisor and professor. I was like, if we did anything when our class was there, was that we were like, nobody's gonna make the film for you, kid. Like, get your troops and go make a film and figure it out. Like, it's not.
Yeah,
I still remember talking to D. Remember with in the radio and what is it, KTEP?
KTEP.
Yeah. I remember that's when we barely
I'm
started.
on Saturdays at 11 a.m. for On Film, so go check out On Film. That's a film radio show that we do for NPR. Check it out.
Yeah.
You'll
Please.
see some podcast episodes on that because I'm lazy. You remember back at with D at KTAP?
Yeah. My last semester with him, I took what was it? What was his class?
Her.
I think it was an elective. It was a
Her. D.
her.
Yeah, D goes.
Oh, yeah.
D is she.
But I remember from my elective.
Oh no, it should.
I told him that we're gonna start the podcast. He was like, "Yo, that's your class. You started."
Oh yeah, no. D would come up to me
Yeah.
like towards the end and was like, "Hey, whatever." Like, because I had a bunch of you guys still at school when I had already graduated, and then I would ask D, "Hey, we're working on a film. Could they just do that this semester?" And she would be like, "Yeah, it's cool. Like, yeah, I'll sign the
I love
paperwork."
it for that, man. It was
so we
awesome.
would do like a film or like even.
So that would be our credit for the class.
Yeah,
'cause
that would be the internship. That was a
Exactly.
DMP internship. Was D was like signing off because we were off making films. It
What
was
more
the
do you
best.
want as a DMP guy? It's
Yeah, so it
perfect.
was great. D was awesome. And yeah, there's still a great group of people there. Shout out to Sam Casellano at KTAP who's still engineering and producing. And
Is he a
Paul.
freshman or is he
Who?
the guy from the podcast? What was the name?
Like the hosts of the podcast?
Yeah, that's what you guys were talking about. My bad.
It's I think, if I'm not mistaken, the consistent host is Anya.
Oh,
Yeah,
so it's her.
Anya, and then we had Ruben on.
Ruben was on
But,
this last time, but there's
that
like
was
an
Ruben.
interchangeable host, right? Like they switch up.
Well, not only interchangeable hosts, but something great that they do, and like shout out to them and shout out to you guys if you're watching right now. But
Yeah.
I love the way that they would change roles. Like they're like, who was this role last week? Like, and then like there'd be a production manager, and then there would be like cam ops, and there would be like, oh, you're on lighting today.
That's
and
really
like people can only come in for, let's say, like 30 minutes, 20 minutes, but at least for that amount of time, you're able to like adjust a light or adjust the mics and all this kind of stuff.
for sure.
And everybody got a chance to do that.
That's
and
really cool.
Those are the cool
Yeah.
moments, man. Those
Yeah, again, we didn't have that, back when we were there.
but
and-
it's great testament to like you work with what you have.
Yeah,
you work
for
with
sure.
what you have, and the fact that like as time's gone on, they're getting more and we're getting more.
Yeah.
It's all working within our means and supporting each other so we can all
That's great.
rise up together.
So again, just shout out to you guys and keep doing your thing.
But going back
it gets
to
better.
fundamental cinema,
Fundamental cinema,
because
absolutely.
Capital F.
these people were also doing it with what they had.
Yeah, they put the fun in fundamental, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And we're here to talk about Jean-Luc Godard's 1960s influential piece, contribution to cinema, Breathless. I thought I struggled a lot on picking this one because I like Francois Truffaut a touch better. Since I discovered the French New Wave, it was like Jacques Demy and Francois Truffaut. Francois Truffaut was for me awesome, and I kept trying to get into Godard because you hear Godard's name and it's like Godard's the one for French New Wave, and that's not necessarily false, but Godard's very complex and very experimental in a lot of ways, and Breathless seemed to be, for me, the most palatable one to kind of start off with, versus the 400 Blows, which is Francois Truffaut's film. They came out around the same time. They came out a year apart, and Francois Truffaut and him were friends until there's a great kind of history to the French New Wave, but until Francois Truffaut made a filmmaker's film called Day for Night, and there's a story that Jean-Luc Godard screened it and walked out of the theater pissed off, and they stopped being friends. Because it's a depiction of a filmmaker in a very grounded way, Day for Night, and Francois Truffaut acts in it. Francois Truffaut is actually an actor too, but it's so grounded that it breaks the spell, and I think that's what Godard was like. You don't show them how the sausage is made. You don't break that sensation for people. It's a sacred thing. He was very protective of the French New Wave players, which he only determines as being 4 or 5 people. Most film enthusiasts and critics will deem a whole group of French New Wave people. But if history serves right, it's basically separated between two, the French New Wave, the left bank and the right bank. I know. It's weird. Godard, Truffaut, all of them belong to the right bank as they defined it. The left bank were the more liberal kind of filmmakers, and were a little more playful with it. Were a little more positive in certain instances. This included Jacques Demy, who was making musicals. This included Agnes Varda, who had a lightness to her films, but also was talking about very serious topics like the Black Panthers, and so they just were less experimental. I think they kind of maintained the traditional form a little more, and I think that's why these cool right bank French New Wave filmmakers were like, nah, we're the cool ones. We're the ones in the shadows doing the experimental shit. And just, again, there's the French New Wave just does carry just a whole lot of things. And Breathless and 400 Blows, if I were going to show you guys one, I'd show you one of those two. I opted for Breathless because
why?
It's less conventional. 400 Blows is a little more kind of narratively consistent.
Okay.
And I didn't want that. I want, if you guys were going to experience a French New Wave film, I wanted you to experience the French New Wave film. And 400 Blows is beautiful. It's such a great film. What's very unique about these two films, too, is that it's each of these filmmakers' directorial debuts.
Oh, wow.
So this was Jean-Luc Godard's directorial debut. Right out the gate, he's going to make Breathless. I'll say one more thing before we get into rating so we can kind of get into that. But what's beautiful about that is the French New Wave is notorious for being kicked off by basically film critics becoming filmmakers. And they kind of stole that a touch from the Italian neorealism. The French New Wave was heavily, heavily, heavily inspired and also kind of pissed off by American classic cinema
Okay.
and Italian neorealism. Those were the two inspirations for the French New Wave. And if you know Italian neorealism, it feels a lot like the French New Wave. You watch Fellini, Roberto Rossellini, you go back to the Italian films, and they feel like it's kicking something off. I recently watched Fellini's Amarcord, which was one of his first films, and yeah, it felt like it was kicking off this new wave, this new thing, this new, fresh, inspiring, untraditional thing. But nonetheless, they were inspired by like the cinema of Alfred Hitchcock and Howard Hawks, and those were the guys who they emulated. But they were also pissed off because they were like, "This cookie cutter bullshit. I don't want this anymore. We need to innovate. We need to change." And that's what inspired the French New Wave. So
I'm with it.
Yeah, a little bit of history there on why we ended up where we ended up. They were French film critics for a magazine called The Cashiers du Cinéma. And they would just write pieces about cinema and say this was too bourgeois, or this was too passé, or whatever.
Too bourgeois.
And then they got to a point where they were like, why the fuck are we doing this? Well, they were just writing about this shit. If we really want change, we have to make the change ourselves. Well, how do we do that? Then they go off and make shit like Breathless. And it changes cinema forever. And it really does. It really did. Breathless and The 400 Blows were critically acclaimed, made a shitload of money like overseas. That means here. And they just hit it worldwide. It was that innovation. It's kind of that thing I tell you guys when like my favorite era of cinema was like 69, 70. It was innovating American cinema because those 69, 70 kids were inspired by these dudes, you know? And they were just like, the studio system is shit. And why is American cinema the last guys in place? Like, why are we falling behind when like the Godards of the world are doing shit like this? Why aren't we doing that? So it inspired the Scorseses and the Coppolas to do some great shit again. Take the reins of American cinema. So again, it's just good cinema begets good cinema, and it's just like this follow through. And I'll forever be grateful for the French New Wave and Italian neorealism for doing that, because then American cinema would have been some cookie cutter bullshit in like what I think is the most revolutionary era of American cinema, which is 1970s, like late 1960s, early 1970s. We got so much great shit all the way through 1980. You know, we got Taxi Driver out of that. We got Easy Rider. We got like all this great cinema, The Conversation, Network, like all these great films. So I like to think this was one of the main dominoes to cause that. So anyways, without further ado, let's get into our ratings.
Try to think of my rating.
And
I don't know what Disney was thinking of.
yeah, he's thinking. I'll start with Austin.
A solid 8.
Solid 8. Were those jump cuts just fucking getting to you?
Oh yeah, dude, we do. I would definitely not want to talk about those.
Ooh.
No, I was just trying to understand why, that's all.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Solid 8, Mr. Castro.
You know what? I wasn't liking it, but I kind of liked it at the end. I'll give it a 7.7.
All right.
Just because I really like the protagonist. It's a different protagonist that I kind of see nowadays. I'll talk about it right now, but
Yeah, sure.
7.7. Strong.
That's stronger than you gave Ashes and Diamonds, so I definitely say you.
I like the experimental, the French, new wave. I like what they were trying to do, the jump cuts, the kind of, you're in the conversation with them instead of, So I kind of liked it. I'm still living with it. I got to see what you guys, because, you guys are smarter than me.
No.
Delau, Mr. Diva Glasses.
Mr. Delau.
9.7.
9.7.
Whoa.
I'm gonna let you give your rating with the glasses, and then you're taking them off because it's affecting your personality.
What do you mean?
Look at you.
Yeah, look at you. Look at him. He's just like.
I'm too cool right
Like he's in a French cafe.
I need a little espresso shot.
and a cigarette.
Yeah.
And a cigarette.
9.7. Wow.
9.7.
That's interesting.
Yep.
I didn't.
First
I'm
time,
always like baffled because I can appreciate how you guys are like how we're all consuming cinema now, like, but it's I don't see you guys as reactive in the room anymore, and that's when I get a 9.7. I'm almost like, oh, shit, okay, cool. Like you were digesting because I didn't see that. I'll be like, oh shit, that's good. Oh, that's cool.
True.
Like I don't see you guys as reactive anymore. I see you guys like digesting this piece.
I reacted when she called the cops.
Yeah, but that's
how you made a
such
pouty
an
face,
interesting thing. I'll be, man. I'm close to the low, but I'm oh man. I'll be at about 9.5.
9.5.
I'll be on 9.5. I think this sits just maybe a 9.6. It sits slightly above like Ashes and Diamonds, but it's right there just in terms of what I think it did for cinema, in terms of how this is substantially more levelly rated than Ashes and Diamonds. Nobody knows fucking Ashes and Diamonds. Everybody knows Breathless in terms of cinephiles. So that's part of the reason where I'm like, yeah, this kind of made a bigger splash and it innovated something. But so did Ashes and Diamonds, and it was made 3 years before this one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 2 or 3 years before this one. So it's one of those things where I feel like that era of European cinema needs to be talked about a lot more. It caused so much. So I'm at a 9.5. I think I'm pretty comfortable at a 9.5 for this.
That's pretty high. And
It's too important to not deem this as like up there. Again, when I think it can subvert... I remember feeling this way when I saw Ingmar Bergman's Persona. It's a psychological thriller. I won't ruin it because it's got Vincian vibes, actually. You should watch Persona.
The title alone is already catching.
But it's what I felt is like walking away thinking, these aren't my cup of tea necessarily.
Okay.
But I fucking love them. Like there's something about them that I just can't watch away. And then I started realizing as I was reading through these books, which I want to read 2 quotes from 2 different books for you guys before we end the episode.
Yeah, I like that.
But I remember reading that this was basically what they called kitchen sink cinema. And I started thinking about that, and I'm like, kitchen sink cinema. And the idea behind kitchen sink cinema, it's a British principle, but or a British movement. But the idea is that you sit around by the kitchen sink having a conversation about life.
Kind of like the water cooler at the office. Okay.
Yeah, but it's like, primarily amongst couples, right? Like
right.
Domestic, settings. And I started thinking, so what the fuck? Those are my films. Like, they were literally subversively like influencing the way I make cinema. So even if it's not my cup of tea in terms of what I enjoy watching, it's influencing my filmmaking because it's just so kinetic and to me it's so alive. And I'll take this over a French Connection any day, or over whatever, a Fast and the Furious, you know what I mean? Or whatever, like I'll take this any day, having 2 people talking about life. And that's really what this film's about. And that's really what the French New Wave is about. It's like the idea of kitchen sink cinema is the idea that they talk about is like 2 angry boys mad at modern society and what society is. And that's what this is. It's 2 people questioning society, questioning societal norms. What's the traditional norm for a couple is that you meet, you fall in love, you do couple shit. And these 2 are like, I don't want that. Like neither of us want that for very different reasons. And they played it in a very grounded way. It's grossly infused with like realism, like life realism. And again, I don't live in France circa 1960, and I still connect with the conversations that they're having. For
sure.
And that's powerful, man. To me, that's just like fucking super powerful. And French New Wave doesn't always have to be about the experimental expression, but you're going to use expression or experimental techniques for your expression. There is like Ingmar Bergman, who's like mad experimental, like Tarkovsky. Like they get into some serious, crazy Kubrickian shit, but on steroids. That's like to me, that's the height of experimental cinema. Or like David Lynch, you don't have to be that necessarily. You could just tackle something new with new norms, break the mold, but still make it a universal story.
Just to freshen my mind a little bit. What would you think is French New Wave in this film? The experimental.
Yeah. So the idea of French New Wave is everything, right? It's the taboo topics that are being discussed. Sure. And again, European cinema was always ahead of the game when it came to that, because you come from the 1950s American cinema of not talking about certain topics. This is post-code cinema, but still kind of like controlled by Christian extremists in the United States. Yeah. But the French New Wave was talking about these topics. It was using unorthodox cinematography, like crazy. Yeah.
But in terms of this film,
that's why it's doing that. It's talking about taboo topics.
For sure.
It's using unorthodox cinematography, cinema verite, documentary style cinematography.
Yeah.
It's doing the stylistic choices like the jump cuts. That was Breathless. Breathless started that. And it's doing long takes.
Yeah, you were saying.
It's doing substantially long takes.
And back then, that wasn't a thing?
Long tracking shots. That's why I give a little more credit to Ashes and Diamonds. Because Ashes and Diamonds was doing it a lot more smoothly, a lot more polished.
Yeah.
This is not. This is very much like...
Which I kind of like.
Let me put it to you this way. The French New Wave's principles were like, let's take a small number of crew, a cheap camera, and go make a film. So, like, they shot in fucking landmarks for Paris.
Yeah.
The Arc de Triomphe, the Champion. Like, they shot in very, like, main streets. They didn't get permits. they just went off and shot. That's why, like, a lot, like, you guys noticed. I think you guys were calling it on the
like,
screen.
from the get-go, I'm like, are they real?
Are they real? Like, they're looking at the camera. And what's more is the lead, Claude Charbreau. Yeah. She's an American actress who rolled her bones in the Hollywood studio system. She was in some notable Hollywood films. She wasn't a big star in film.
She's gorgeous.
But she was popular enough to where Jean-Luc Godard said, this movie's not going to make dick. I need to make it a little commercially viable. What if we get like a good known American actress who can act in this? And so like the bystanders, the extras were like, is that her?
Oh,
like
okay.
That's what they were doing. So they were doing that. Literally, they had like an 8-person crew. They didn't use lighting. They didn't use artificial lighting. They used all natural light for everything. And they went as guerrilla as you can get, as what we know as guerrilla. I was showing Delal a picture in one of the essay books that it was Godard pushing his cinematographer in a wheelchair with the camera. Where do you know that from?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, he did it first, Rodriguez. Like, that was Godard. But that was the point. What do we have at our disposal? I want to talk about the cinematography and talk about why they were able to get away with this. They even revolutionized cinematography.
In what way?
I don't know if you know this a lot or if you picked up. I'm sure you picked up on it.
Look at me.
What they did. Yeah,
of course I did. No, I'm kidding.
What they did was they used a cheap film camera that was able to process film from celluloid, from still cameras.
Yeah.
So what they did was the sprocket holes were bigger in still cameras, in still film. Still 35 millimeter film. They were bigger, but this cheap camera wouldn't even claw into the sprockets. It would just process the film on its sides, on the edges. And that's how they were able to get away with it. The reason they did this is because this type of film, it was like 400 AST or something like that. This type of film could process dark better without grain. It wasn't grainy in the baths for the film baths, but they could get away with shooting in dark without forcing light, without literally lighting the scene. So they got away with that because they were using still camera photography film in a cinema camera.
Wow.
That's how they got away from. But again, they were just fucking around.
Yeah.
And this wasn't a big budget.
Yeah, because
film.
I've seen those images processed, and I think when you look at them, if it's the same one you're talking about, you'll normally on like film cameras, you'll see the centers processed, and it'll create the negative. But in these ones, the negative goes all the way to like even those rolls and everything. It's just like fully
processed that way.
Yeah.
And the reason for this is like, this was a new movement. People weren't going to believe in these dudes. In fact, studios hated these guys because they shat all over their films because they were film critics.
Right.
So there's a great story, which I'll read from the quote, but there's a great story about like the Cannes Film Festival hating them because Jean-Luc Godard, Francois Truffaut, they would trash the Cannes Film Festival in their reviews. Like, you guys are not picking innovative films. You guys are just like killing the mode and you're killing cinema. And like, then they were like pissed off. And then 1959, this was like 1957, 58.
Right.
1959, The 400 Blows premieres at Cannes. And then 1960 Breathless premieres at Cannes and at Venice. And like, so those people were not going to support these guys. They're not going to give them money for their films, because they were shitting all over the norm at the time. So they were just going to get whatever
Basically,
they could.
They were scared because they were thinking outside the box.
They were thinking outside the box. And again, they were like, we're going to just get what we can when it comes to these these shots, to the point where like Breathless was inspired by a news article that Francois Truffaut read. Francois Truffaut read this news article about a guy named Michel, whatever his last name was. This was a real guy.
Okay.
Michel Porciard. Michel was a real guy in a French newspaper who was like a bandit, and his girlfriend was like stole a car to go visit his ailing mother in the North Country, and Michel Porciard, let's say Porciard, and Francois Truffaut was like, this would make for a great film. And mind you, this is pre-Bonnie and Clyde.
I was about to say that.
Pre-Bonnie and Clyde.
This reminds me so much of Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde took a lot from this film.
Yeah,
a lot.
That's all I'm hearing right now.
So they read the article. Francois Truffaut writes a treatment, hands it to Godard, and Godard's like, yeah, I'll take that, and I'm going to deconstruct it, and I'm going to make my own script. And made a basis of a script, but then for the main dialogue sequences, he would write that morning and shoot that night. Like for the main dialogue.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's...
Yeah.
Confidence, risky, dumb. I don't know what to categorize.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we shit on like, it's crazy, right? Because we shit on our past selves, or we kind of like flinch a little bit when we hear like students being like, we're just going to go and do it.
No,
and it's like, I remember that. I remember just, I get it.
You know what?
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing, because I mean, while watching it, you feel like you're watching a student film,
right?
But this is the reason student films look the way they do, because they were looking at stuff like this that again, on the, you know what? It's like the crayon drawing you see at an art museum, where anybody goes up and looks at it and think like, I could do that,
right?
Like I could grab a box of crayons tonight and I could draw a stupid little house and put it there, and then what the artist will say is like, yeah, you could have, but I did it.
I did.
Right.
And then also,
but they also weren't. They were looking at, these guys weren't looking at the shitty ones saying I could do that. They were looking at the pretty ones, at the expensive ones, being this is shit.
It's the similar conversation of looking at they make fun of it in, what is it called, The French Dispatch, where it's like, like the way you know an artist is a true artist and not just like some guy who's full of himself is you ask him to draw something real, something that like is recognizable, and then shows a sparrow, and it's like, oh, it's a perfectly drawn sparrow. It's like, yeah, he could do this, but he chooses this. Like this is
exactly.
And in the same way, all these guys could have played the studio system, and they could have followed the rules and the the formula that is proper equipment, like permitting,
proper lighting, permitting,
lighting, getting everything where it's just very sterile. But again, they were seeing the downfall that everything looks cookie cutter, everything looks too stable. And I was even thinking about that.
It,
as silly as it sounds, I was at the at-home store earlier today, and there's this painting, and you've probably seen it. It's Nighthawks. You've seen Nighthawks, right? It's 3 people in a diner that are at the diner, and then there's like one guy who's just there. And it's this exploration
from
of...
the corner.
From the
corner. Yeah. And there's no doors, and it's exploration of shared loneliness, and it's really interesting.
Yeah.
But in this one, because it's like at the at-home store, and it's fun, there's 3 dogs that are all like at the corner, and they're like looking into the window like for food, like they're baking. And the thing is, I know this is going to sound like a very like meandered kind of like comment, but in that, I was thinking of how perfectly those dogs are placed, but then for some reason, because it's I focus more on movies, I think about all the classic films where you see dogs in these perfect positions, and like everything's staged a certain way, and that texture that we try to mimic today, like how could we get like that old quality of films where everything just had a look to it, and they can't describe it, but I think it's the fact that when you look at classic cinema, especially like the golden age, everything's so staged, everything's so perfect. I mean, even like musicals, any camera movement complemented these numbers that, as spontaneous as they felt in the story, they were all elaborately orchestrated things. Compared to something like this, that its beauty comes in how much you feel the realism, the texture. Yeah.
No, but it's and you're absolutely right. Like it's these filmmakers being like, I'll read it in the article, but they were like, we are ashamed of our love for cinema because of what you're turning it into. Like, how can we love cinema if this is the cinema you're making?
Yeah.
And that's a strong statement, man. It's like, because you can continue to love the old cinema, but then it's like that line in La La Land. Like, how are you going to be a traditionalist if you're such a what's the line?
How are you going to keep it alive
if you're such a traditionalist?
If you're such a traditionalist and you're always focusing on the past instead of
but
looking towards the future.
What did he say? He says jazz is about the future. Yeah, jazz is about the future. That's kind of a similar thing. Like, how are we going to be obsessed about the past and they're going to love Hawks and Hitchcock, but never move the medium forward?
Going back to that, like, again, the crayon painting in the art museum, I think the difference between something like this, which a lot of people get mad at the onset because of how it feels,
right?
But what separates it and puts it in the museum is, and maybe I can bridge this into cinematography.
Yeah,
I think that this has, oh my God, it has incredible amounts of intentionality, but taken to a hyper extreme.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I've always liked experimental cinema, because experimental cinema is meant to say everything has purpose. Everything's going to look off.
Yeah.
But you need to ask yourself, why does that look off? And
sure.
How does that make me feel?
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the key question is, why do people feel so uneasy going into a picture like this?
Yeah.
Whether it's something like this or something like David Lynch, anything that's experimental. Like, why do I feel so uneasy? Because you're so used to the cookie cutter bullshit.
Yeah.
You're so used to being safe in a sound stage with the windows being decorated and the furniture being nice, and you're not used to getting the camera off the tripod and showing you life a little closer.
No, I think the difference between somebody who's just like doing this like randomly, like again, like the film students, which no knock to the film students, but them that are just saying, oh, well, in French New Wave, it just looked shaky, and they would push in and all this kind of stuff. Compared to like what made the French New Wave, is they knew what good was. They at the time they knew how to make something look studio. They knew how to make things look sterile, but instead of using that all the time, they only use it to create contrast of mentality.
And mind you, what was giving you a sensation at the time? It was documentary cinema. There was a documentary revolution in the 60s too, in the late 50s. And that's where they're picking up on this. They're like, oh, that made me feel something. That made me feel like, and again, a lot of these documentaries are political. You know, the cinema verite ones especially, they were very political. They were following political figures in a lot of the cases. Like the famous JFK one. I forget the name of the film, but the famous JFK cinema verite kind of shots. Fly on the wall type stuff. So like it's taking that and saying, that made me feel something. What if we take that and use it in narrative cinema? Because that hasn't really been done before.
No, yeah.
You know, and they did it.
You know, I'll say this, like, just to jump into some of the cinematography for the film that also justifies my rating. When you're, as a cinematographer, if you're doing everything right, you're coming up with a shot list and you're trying to come up with like shots that are going to give you enough to play with later on. You know, even we talk about how when crafting a shot list, there's certain shots that we're not going to use the whole take. We're just going to use this one little angle if we need breathing room, or, you know, sometimes you film two different shots because you're like, what if I need something to cut to? That's there's a mentality of like,
there's a safety net.
It's a safety net, but it's adding fat.
Yeah.
And I think with this film, what I noticed off the get-go is it was a very like trim, no fat film.
Oh yeah.
And it's an odd thing to look at it because it's like saying, what if we just gave the audience essentials? And if you want to look at like the beginning sequence, the whole stealing the car and killing the cop, everything's this just like, let me just give you the meat. Don't worry about the fat. Don't worry about the things that are going to like get you there. Like it doesn't.
That in and of itself could have been the film, right? That could have been the film.
Yeah.
Killing the cops, stealing the car. That in and of itself is a thing to focus on, the thing that you can make the traditional film out of.
Yeah.
And what Godard basically was saying too, he's like, I love police procedurals.
Yeah.
I love like when a good cop story happens. This is what we're talking about, like hard-boiled detective stories that he was obsessed with, you know? The Howard Hawks stuff, The Big Sleep, like noir films. And he was like, I love those so much. I wanted to do right by them. but I didn't have the budget to do right by them. So I'm going to do something in that vein, make you feel as uneasy as some of these noir films, make you feel like we're following a character and his story.
But
we're changing it.
Yeah, it's just... go ahead.
Can you elaborate on the fat? Because I think that's one of the things I really didn't like about this film.
That the fat is trimmed.
Yeah, so I mean...
That there's no fat.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's a 90-minute film, by the way.
It's so...
But what do you mean? Because I'm thinking like some of the scenes kind of drifted into like...
Okay, let me explain
Nothing?
this. Like,
Wait,
hold on.
That's what I'm saying. Is that what
Yeah,
is
no,
that what you're talking
that's
about?
what I'm saying.
He's trimming he means trimming the fat in terms of the
visuals. Yeah,
the visuals
yeah.
and the pacing.
Yeah,
because,
the pacing. I'm talking about
because how many times will you watch in a film a character contemplating, or then you'll get a B-roll shot of like a door or a window, and in a lot of these moments that are
you'll
left,
get a crane shot coming into the doorstep where they're sitting on. And,
that's fat. Okay.
Yeah, those lingering moments that are meant to like, set the scene, but also for the audience to be like, hey guys, just like jingle, you're looking at a house. Okay, or is everybody focused on the house? Like, let's wait for little Timmy to catch up so we can all see that we're looking at the house, and then it'll guide you into the next scene,
But look what they chose. They did like what I'm positive, and I don't know this for sure, but what I'm positive Scorsese took from in Taxi Driver. When we talk about the scene of the phone booth where he's on the phone with the girl and the camera goes and it stays in the hallway and it stays there.
The last shot,
because it's just too embarrassing to stay on him, right? But we stay on the hallway.
Yeah.
Isn't like I couldn't help but be reminded of that when they're in the cab and he's gonna get off to go look for his friend who owes him money, and the camera stays in the cab, not looking at her because she's still in the cab,
just the people,
not even clearly looking at him, but seeing a fraction of him, and kind of seeing the suspense and kind of seeing like, is he coming back? Will he come back with the money? Like, we're gonna stay there and let this breathe, let this shot breathe.
And that's where
I like that shot.
That's where the intentionality.
some of them I didn't.
No, that's where the intentionality shines. And I mean, there's so many moments to like pick at and choose from. The only reason I'm focusing on the beginning is because at the very beginning, the dialogue, right? The dialogue is to give you this guy's mentality and his kind of view of everything, and saying
look at
like
that juxtaposition though too in the '60s, man. The juxtaposition of that monologue.
Yeah.
Like it was breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
I love the French country. Like, don't you like? He just killed a fucking cop, and he's talking about the French country and driving.
It's before he kills the cop. It's before he kills the cop, and it's when he's talking about that. And as he's talking about that, instead of like a normal movie would have given you time to see him driving, then let's focus on his face. Let's have him smile, and then after he smiles,
or not, if he's on, if he kills a cop,
but before then, again, before then, he doesn't kill the cop yet. But having those moments where the audience is able to visually catch up to whatever he's feeling. Yeah. But no, it's like, fuck that. He's gonna tell you what he's thinking. He's gonna look into camera, so you're like, no, look at me. This is what I'm actually thinking. Don't interpret whatever the fuck. This is what's going on. And then the cuts of like, oh, okay, move out of the way. I need to get to the next car. Need to go. You're like, okay, he's a guy, fast, moving, mission. This is his mentality. Pulls off to the side. Right. Oh, something's wrong with the car. And then it's like, turns. No cop. Okay, back to him. Turns. Cops pulling in. Now he's tense. Tension leads to grabs gun. Gun leads to a cop dead. Dead cop means he runs. Run means he gets to the cab, which takes him to the hotel. We don't need to see that driving scene.
To an extent, your mind fills in the gaps. Exactly. You've seen a version of this story before.
That's why it's like there's no
fat. You already know what happens. Let's just get to the point of what these characters are really going through. And where do we linger? We linger in the kitchen sink situations. Them in the bedroom, them talking about, I'm pregnant. Like, if we're going to linger anywhere, we're going to linger in the humanity of these people. You've already seen the cops and robbers. Yeah. They've been doing that since Scarface, since the 1930s. You've seen that. You've seen those films. Let's change the form where we're going to really lean in on their humanity.
Good. Yeah.
Even when she's having the date with that guy or meeting up with the journalist.
The journalist,
yeah. She's meeting up with the journalist, and he's like, oh, man, this reminds me of a story. And right when you think you're going to sink into a story, it's like, then this happened, then this happened. Then this happens.
Exactly.
Great time. I'll talk to you later. And it again, it's a film that says we're giving you what you need. That's it. Like.
And by the way, set again.
We're skipping the
like I think about that scene, and I think about just like how did they get away with shooting in this beautiful restaurant with a big ass window looking at one of the main streets of Paris. They got away with so much. They were filming during the presidential visit of Dwight Eisenhower when he visited Paris. This was real. He just decided to use it as his backdrop.
Nah, oh, perfect.
But again, why are we doing this? It's an American talking to a Frenchman, and how they either get along or they don't. They're still deciding if they love each other. Like what? How like kind of a genius man do you have to be to say like, well, hey, Eisenhower's visiting in 3 months. We're shooting in 3 months. Like we're gonna set this as the backdrop. America, and then America and France and their relationship and how they've always been allies, but they also kind of don't fucking like each other. And the French shit on the Americans, and the Americans think the French smell or whatever, you know, like. But the couple is a Frenchman and an American woman.
Yeah.
Like again, even just that juxtaposition, that mise en scène of like, we're gonna shoot against this big ass window while the parade of the president happens in the background. And fucking genius.
That is
like
that
to
is,
me
that,
very much what the edits were and the shots they chose. For a while, the only term I could think of describing it was like the mise en scène, even though it's not the objects in place and what we see, but it's more again that what's gonna be essential. Even like where they're having a conversation and we don't need to get coverage, medium shots and wides and everything like that of them having a conversation. If all the audience needs to focus on right now is the fact that in some way she looks up to him, give us that angle. Yeah. They would give us that angle. It was a close up on her in a very documentary style, but quickly gives us that. She says her line and then cut back to him, and I
couldn't help but think about Birdman.
Yeah.
And if something like Breathless didn't exist, Birdman wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about the cinematography alone, but I'm talking about like.
And not even.
And I know we're going to kind of hop around here, but
pull-outs.
Not just cinematography, but the fact that when I interpret Birdman and I see the final shot and I see Emma Stone's character after her dad fucking jumps out a window, and she processing this and then smiling, and I interpret that as like she's inheriting his fucking craziness. Her father's craziness, because she was around him for so long and battled with him for so long, and like she inherited that craziness, that going mad aspect, right? And I think a lot about that, and I think about these two characters in Breathless, and I think about how the entire time they're battling about what they don't like about each other. They're battling about what they like, and I don't know if I want to fall in love with you. And hey, I know I'm kind of carrying your kid, but fuck it, like you go your way, I go my way, and they just are constantly talking about how unhappy they are and how they just don't want to end up together. And then when he dies, that final line is just so crucial, and the cinematography, the choices made in cinematography in those moments, and those straight on shots. You know, it's one of the only times you get a stable straight on shot for her and for him. Mm-hmm. And what does she do? He says something offensive. That on the surface, it's offensive. What do you say? You make me puke.
Yeah.
And then she doesn't hear
and
it.
And then she says, she does the gesture, the bogey gesture.
Yeah.
That was his thing.
Yeah.
So why is she, now she's inheriting that. She does fucking love him. Like she's a part of him now.
Yeah.
She'll forever be doing the lip thing and remembering him. And the fact that he says, what was the line right before the "you make me puke" line? It was the facial gestures.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Right. Those facial gestures are like the moment that they shared. Right?
Exactly. Like what they probably like peaked at.
And that's his last stop before he dies. He's just thinking of her and the moment that made them happy, the moment where they were in sync. And then he says, "Makes me puke," because he doesn't know what the traditional couple is, but that making him puke is like the equivalent of like. How sappy to me. How sappy, how like romantically gross.
Yeah.
You know? And to her, she's like, what is puke? What does puke even mean? You make me want to puke. What is puke? And again, now she's processing it like him. She's not processing it like, oh, those were the last words and it was the facial expressions in the moment. She was like, now she's thinking the way he's thinking. If somebody tells me that I'm gross, what does gross even mean? Because that's how he would process thought.
And going back
I'm still trying to process that. What?
Going back to the whole intentionality, all we need in that last moment is to have this concrete answer that he did something, whatever it might be, that connected with her.
Right.
And that whole idea of like asking, like, I don't even know if I love you. And at the very end, she's like, no, I don't love you. And I just need to call the police to verify that I wouldn't love you because I did something that you would hate or something like that. But then at the very end, just her looking into camera, doing the gesture, and then like saying the line that was said earlier, then that was like, oh no, he's stuck with you forever.
He's stuck with you forever.
A very instant punch, no fat, fiend like.
And I see you struggling with this, Costa. Let me try to pinpoint it a little better. When you think about her, you think about a romantic girl who loves love, and that's how she processes relationships, and she wants to feel love.
Girl, not her. She was kind of dry, but yeah.
No, I think she leaned into that traditionalism a little bit.
She felt half asleep, kind of like her character kind of felt kind of.
No, but what I mean is how she processed humanity, how she processed like being in a couple.
Okay.
Like she wanted the traditionalism. She wanted to be taken out on dates. She wanted to be told she's loved and that she's beautiful and all that stuff, right? That's how she was kind of like processing love. He wasn't like that. He was just constantly like, what does any of this even mean? Like, what's important about this? Like, we'll be dead tomorrow. Like, that's how he processed life. And
I think also the processing of it being just like, all I can say for sure is a feeling I have in the moment. And while the feeling's here, like, let's just fuck. Like,
it was very like that for sure.
It was like, why are you focusing on talking about like what we are and who we're gonna be and all this kind of stuff? Yeah, take your top off. That whole thing.
Yeah, so that's just how they're processing it, right? But he's constantly battling with like reading newspapers and what does this even mean? Like, who gives a shit if I steal a car? Like, we're gonna be dead tomorrow. Like, fuck it. Like, live life. Mm-hmm. But not in the liberal, happy-go-lucky live life. In a like, we're all gonna die one day. Let's just fucking do what we want and whatever makes us happy. This includes sex, right? So like that's how he processes life. So if she were to tell him, like, I think you're fucking ugly.
Okay.
He wouldn't be like, oh, that hurts. Like, what do you mean? Don't say that.
That's where you're going.
He'd be like, what does ugly even mean? Is ugly my facial expressions? Is ugly the kind of person I am? Does ugly mean cool for another girl? Will that other girl, like one of the girl I slept with earlier in the film, will she process ugly and like ugly? Like, he's just going to ask all these existential questions and not really take it to heart.
Exactly.
Like, what was the big line that he said? Like, where it's like, she said, say one nice thing. And he's like, oh, I like you because you're beautiful. And it's like, or am I ugly? Or like, what's the difference?
Yeah. Yeah, he says, I want to sleep with you again because you're beautiful.
And she's like, oh, does that mean you wouldn't sleep with me if I was ugly?
And he's like, what's the difference?
Fucking women, dude. What the fuck?
And he's like, what's the difference? But that's the point. So that ending shot or that ending sequence.
The ending line.
Now she's saying, like, he's saying, ugh, you make me want to puke. And instead of being like, you fucking dick, like, that's the last thing you're ever going to say to me after doing a romantic gesture before that, she's processing it like, what does puke mean? Now she's asking herself these questions of like, what does he mean by puke?
Because at the very end, basically, a part of him is now attached to her.
For sure. And now she's acting like...
And the whole idea of her saying like, I'm not going to love you. And like, love is just like, I was wondering if I was, and I was also telling myself I shouldn't. So I don't love you. And that's why I reported you to the cops. But then her chasing afterwards to see like if he's going to be okay, and her getting there, and then that last little moment where she's doing a gesture that only he did shows even that, like, whether you loved him or not, he's made with you. And is that not love?
I had a conversation with a friend recently that... I'm
sorry.
Yeah, I know. What is a friend, you know? And no, but I had a conversation with a friend specifically about this because he's a skeptic, and he doesn't really believe in love, and he thinks he's just going to be single the rest of his life. And
me?
No, we're having this conversation about like, Austin and I were telling him like, dude, you're going to fall in love so fucking hard. And when you do, like when she comes along, you're going to like, we did like the whole How I Met Your Mother thing. Like, you better look in the newspaper for the wedding announcements for yours. Like that type of thing. Like, you're going to fall so hard. Like, you just don't know it yet. And he's like, nah, fuck that, dude. Like, I can't do that. Blah, blah, blah. And we're having the conversation, and I think how I was processing that, like, is how I think it's gonna end up happening for him. Like, you think love, and you think 1950s musical or soap operas where I profess my love and get down on bended knee, but that's not love necessarily. But when someone stays with you, when you're fighting them with every piece of your every fiber of your being, and they still become a part of you, that's love.
You know what's crazy?
Yeah, I get it.
I was also having a conversation
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have a friend?
No.
I was having GPT.
No, I was actually. It was last night before I went to bed. Like, Meg was asking me about if I believe in the red string story. Have you heard that one?
The red string story, no.
I think it's Japan, Japanese folklore. That,
Of course it is.
I like it. I'm liking it.
No, there's Japanese folklore, and she's always said that she wants to like write, like if she writes one script, it wants to be like something that's within the story but modernized. But the whole idea is that they believe that you and your soulmate are attached by like an invisible string. And then the whole idea is that everywhere you go through in life is just untangling that string. So let's say if like, you know, something doesn't work out and all that, it's like, don't worry, you're just not at the end of the string yet. You know, like that's kind of
it's like the past lives thing.
It's like the past lives thing. And it's just like you have your person. It's just if you're not there yet, it's because you still need you still need to like untangle yourself. Like you need to get out of whatever this is and find clarity. And once you do, you'll know it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the whole thing I brought up to her was the whole thing of past lives and Inyun. And I was like, I think a lot of people make that story. I think a lot of people are trying to explain love, and they're trying to explain you know, like they're trying to say this feels too good to just be a happenstance or just by chance and all that.
It's like the thing where like historians go back billions of years, and as they progress, each society, each era of history has a version of a messiah, like in their and it puzzles everybody because it's like, dude, these dudes were in Africa while these dudes were in fucking Japan, you know, like. But each of them has a version of the Messiah. Like that has to make you wonder, like, how, you know, like somebody believes in a God that's going to come back and whatever, you know. So like, I think it's that factor. It's like every culture tries to depict serendipity and love and how you process love and fate.
Yeah.
And that's why I used to talk about it all the time that like all art is man's way of trying to explain like life. The world and what's going on. And those stories, even about love, it's like when you have a connection with somebody that feels so strong and you're like, why don't I have this with everybody else? Like, you know, why don't I just want to like go up to Castro?
And Breathless to me is like Breathless to me is like the skeptic's love story.
Ooh, I like that.
You know, the person who doesn't believe in love's love story. And again, that's tough to do, man, because like you guys know how much I love like In the Mood for Love, and how I deem it like the most romantic film.
I'm glad you did watch that one.
That doesn't have any romance, any physical touch and shit like that.
But that's the whole.
I mean, this is a close second in terms of like the most romantic film that's not very romantic.
Yeah.
But the strength of their love is big. It's strong. It's so strong that it doesn't fall into traditional norms, right? Traditional societal norms.
And you want to have an answer. I think that's what they want, and that's what you want. And
closure.
And again, I love the moments whenever she says like, "Oh, I need time to think," or something like that. And it's like, well, what about? And it's like, I still don't know yet.
How much time do you need? Because a small amount of time means 8 days, 8 years, 8 months. And she's like, well, let's try for 8 days. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's to explain that whole thing. And I mean,
you can see right through him because he's like, well, I'm just here to fuck, and then whatever, and then I guess I'll say I love you because I just want to get laid. And then he's kind of like, so what are you doing the rest of the day? Like, can I come with you? Like, can I stay with you? Can I? And at first glance, you're like, well, he's a fugitive. He's hiding from the police. He just needs a place to stay. But at second glance, like, he doesn't want to be away from her. Like, he could choose anybody. He could choose any brothel in fucking Paris. But he wants to be next to this chick. He just wants, he feels that connection and he wants to be with her.
I love when he's finally with his friend and he's like, well, who's the girl? And it's like, damn it, I think I'm in love. And it's like, oh, damn. Like because it's like that wasn't part of the plan. But you know, it's
I think I'm gonna stay. But take the pistol. No, I think I'm gonna stay.
Think I love her. No, oh my god, I love that moment. I don't really have a very pretentious answer for it, and I'm sorry, film podcast viewer listeners, but damn it, like I'm not gonna take the gun, and then this police are aiming a gun at him. And it's like, oh, as long as he doesn't take the gun, he could just be like, you got me. Like,
yeah, right.
let me go to jail. At least I'll be quiet. I'll see a wall.
Like the 60s, buddy.
Yeah, and it's like, and then after they throw the gun, they're like, he's got a gun, and then shoot him. And I don't know. I found that so. I don't know if you remember the moment in Futurama. Do you remember the moment in Futurama when I think they were trying to like dine and dash, and then Fry's picking his nose, and they're like, hey, he's got a gun. It's like, no, I'm just picking my nose. Like, beat him up. He's picking his nose. It was that moment, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just because we've seen it done better now in cinema, right?
For sure.
The guy's reaching for a bag of chips, and they think he's reaching for a gun, and there's the suspense. Yeah. We've seen it done better because of editing techniques and how you can refine certain camera movements and shit like that. They didn't have that. They were running in the middle of a Paris street hoping not to get arrested because they didn't have permits. You know, like they're just trying to as long as you communicate, just throw the fucking gun. I don't care. Like
again, that's back to the whole no fat thing of the film, and that's why I rate it so high because I think that this film represents a maximum of what we try to do now. That whenever we do it, we feel like we're making better films ourselves.
Well, yeah, and it's what we're trying to do in terms of like catching lightning in a bottle.
Yeah,
like you can't recreate Breathless. You asked me this when we were screening the film, and I was like, I'd take a stab at it because it's a story that you could recreate in your own way, but you can't recreate Breathless. They caught lightning in a bottle. They really did, and it's a moment in time and cinematic history that you can't really repeat. There's different versions of it now. We've evolved and we have like what we deem now as like elevated cinema, right? And that's the kind of the cinema that we respect in our era right now, and the filmmakers that are doing that. But
this was the model.
But this was the model then. This was you can't recreate that point in time, and I think that's what you mean by that maximalist factor.
Yeah, it's well, I mean it in the sense also that in making a film that's like very intentional, because we talk a lot of times about, again, as filmmakers, and even like when we talk to producers and they tell us like, okay, you can film so many shots, but after a while you got to get rid of some because we can't use it, and we're like, okay, I'm good getting rid of those. But that also means that whenever we're making something, we're not making everything to be used. And I think it's gotten worse with digital because now we all are spoiled, and I can take as many takes as I want and all that. And we had a whole conversation last podcast about too many takes.
I'll take it a step further in terms of your intentionality.
Yeah,
I'll up the ante and say that your decisiveness and your intentionality.
Yeah.
Like how decisive you have to be. Like even in their case, right? Like I can't falter because if I falter, like I posted a video today of Del Toro talking about directing and how he's talking about how directing there's a big misconception with directing cinema. Most people think that directing is the exercise of control. That's what directing is, the exercise of control, controlling the frame, controlling the film, controlling the actors, control. And by nature, you are a control freak as a director because you have to control all these elements, right? So, but he says, but that's the mythological throne. That's the myth that we enthrone as directors, is the myth of control. What directing actually is orchestrating accidents. That's what directing actually is. Because he says you could be as prepared as you possibly want and come in with storyboards and have color-coded pages, and you could be as prepared as you want. It's still going to go south 30 times for you on production.
Yep.
So while you're getting these accidents, how can I orchestrate these happy accidents to work in my favor? And I really do think that
is very
good. That intentionality is like, I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to be intentional with my shots. But
yes, prepared as I can.
I'm going to be happy with what I get. And if I'm not happy with what I get, what's the magic I can incite? What's the new kind of flame I can incite so that I can film the flame happen naturally? You know?
We talk about all the time with like modern directors that what impresses us about something like PTA, Scorsese, Wes Anderson. M. Night. No, I'll throw him into the mix. I feel like with a lot of these directors, when you look at what they're able to do compared to us, because you're like, wait, what's separating us besides money and like stability and probably insurance? Like, what's really separating us?
Lies.
Lies. Wait. No. I think you've mentioned it with Scorsese that somebody can give him a problem, any problem, and he can like just close his eyes and look at it and then be like, here's how we fix it. And that quick snap of like, I can shift a crack this direction, and now it becomes art. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I'm good
That's
with that.
for sure. I'm being facetious, but at the same time, how many fucking times
6.
have we been on set
6.
and then we're like, oh shit, this happened.
6.
And then you're in the interviews at a film festival and you're like, how did that happen? They're like, well, you know what? We thought a lot about this shot and we planned it. Bullshit.
It was a happy accident.
It was a happy accident.
Yeah.
How many times have we been on set and that happens to us?
It happens every second of being in the editing bay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember Austin and I were like having such a hard time. Also, was it this time to crack the beat, the final beat of the eyebrow raise in Eller's character? This was arguably the most important beat of the story. And we were like, we couldn't get it, we couldn't crack it. And he would come back with a cut, and I'm like, it's missing something. And then I would take a crack at it, and I couldn't do it. And then we were like messing with the music and timing the music. And then I was like, you know what, dude, take a break. Grab a cup of coffee. He's like, yeah, dude, tackle it, see if you can do it. And I sit at the computer, and I'm going frame by frame by frame.
So
and then I like cut a frame out, and then I'm like, line up the music to that specific situation. And then he comes back, and he's like, that was it. That's it. That's it. That's like we were done with the film after that fucking edit. Like it drove us crazy. But again, it was just like left, right, like arrow left, arrow right on the keyboard until we figured
it was perfectly aligned.
You know? And that happens more often than not. Most directors won't admit that because you want to be intentional, and you should be. But allow for those happy accidents to come into your life. Don't be so precious with the material that you're like, no. The storyboard says this. You know where we'd be if we
without giving
that.
too much away. Are you hoping to see that happy accident when the movie comes out?
Yeah.
Like if that suggestion manifested.
Yes. You kidding me? Yeah. Well, just stay tuned for that story.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, absolutely. Because, again, I saw it firsthand.
That's what it is.
That's what it was. It's like, hey, what about that? Oh, shit. Yeah, let me go try that. Just one of the greats in cinema. Going to try that. Yeah, it happens more often than not. Because we're human and we don't know shit. And we're finding it and we're discovering it.
I think also that's why, again, the French New Wave took so much from like the cinema de verite and the realistic aspect of documentary cinema that they are... I mean, I had such an appreciation for when I worked in like documentary practicum. Yeah. And when making a documentary myself, you look at these moments of spontaneity and these moments of randomness and then say like, how can there be narrative to this? Yeah. I mean, you have to take the raw material and turn it into a story.
But you can, that's the thing though. You can go, there's a lot of very great documentary filmmakers who go in with, this is the story. This is what I'm going to be chasing in the footage. I don't care who you are. Even in narrative storytelling to an extent, you don't know what the story is till you get to the editing bay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know what the film is. You can imagine what the film is. You can think what head, but you can ask the interview, like in documentary, you can manipulate the interviewee and say, ask the questions to get the answers you want to get out of them.
Yeah.
But you don't know what the story is till you're in the editing bay. You don't know what it is.
And in the verite movement, they incorporated a lot of what Hitchcock called, I forgot what that effect is. You put two frames and your brain will match them together.
Oh, the Kuleshov.
The Kuleshov effect. Where I was watching one, I forgot what it was about, but it's this documentary talking about, just like kids in school. And it's just following, like fly on the wall, but following the motions that go on in a school. And they had one moment where you see a dean of discipline like walking down the hall, but then quickly turns his head to the left and then cut to a schoolgirl like correcting her skirt and then cut back to him just walking down the hall. But those kind of things where they're just kind of happenstance, but because of that,
because of the magic of editing,
because of him just turning,
they could make him pervy.
They could make him pervy, and they could do something that's going to completely subvert everything in the film to influence a narrative. And the same with like this, letting the characters go and play and breathe, but then cramming it in. Well, we're just going to give you the essential.
And by the same token, you can't do that with actors who aren't willing to play ball.
Ooh.
Yeah.
These actors were playing ball. Imagine, like I was reading, and this can kind of bridge into the editing. I was reading that because of the nature of writing the dialogue in the morning and then just shooting it at night.
You just said that.
The only person who saw the script, quote unquote, were the actors. They would look at Godard's notebook where he wrote the lines. That's how they were reading the script, quote unquote. But because they didn't have the facilitation of getting the script the night before and let me memorize my lines, they were feeding them the lines on set.
Oh, is that the edit?
No, you would think it is. I mean, I'm sure it contributed in some small factor. What actually happened with the edit was this. Everybody was so afraid, including Godard, everybody was so afraid that this film was going to tank because there was a longer cut, a substantially longer cut. And they were like, this thing's going to tank. It's not commercially viable. It's too long. People are going to connect to it. It's already confusing enough. It's already like artsy.
Oh, no. So, is it for the runtime?
Yes. It's because Godard was like, all right. Oh, you want me to cut some shit? I'll cut some shit.
Really? So the movie was actually...
Genuinely Godard saying like, boom, 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 boom. Get to the fucking point. For runtime's sake.
So you're telling me like the original one was that whole scene...
Played out. Yes.
You know what's so annoying about that?
No, it's not annoying. It's actually impressive.
But
It's brave.
But the whole thing is that like, especially like when movies are being edited and like here it's like, but it's gonna look weird, so let's just save it and then be like, fuck it, just get rid of
I
that.
like to think that like if I'm empathizing with Godard
to the point
in
of
that
like,
stage of the edit, because I just went through it. If I'm empathizing with Godard, I think he's getting so much shit about this film.
Sure.
And what is this piece of shit? Studio's pissed off, whatever. And he's just like, you know what, dude? This thing's not even gonna come out. Let's just fuck it up. Like, I'm done.
I just imagine
done with this. Fuck it up.
The point where it's like, it's literally like just like that word. Yes. Okay, and that's his sentence. And you just
but look what happened.
The fuck out of it.
I'm not bullshitting. You can read upon this. That's what happened. But it created a technique in cinema. Jump cuts. Intentional jump cuts. I mean, we talk about it all the time with like the Scorsese cut, where it's two cuts that really feel like offbeat, but they both carry something, and you're matching them together, and it just works for whatever the film.
So how do you take it? Do you give him credit, or you think him like, this guy just...
You got to be brave, dude. At the end of the day, like as a director, this is the film that your name is going to be on this.
You don't think like he half-assed it, but then came out with something cool?
No, I think Godard's smarter than that. I think because, and not because he's a born genius, but because he's a critic. And he knows cinema, and he knows what cinema needed to become. Like he knows, like, all right, if I do this, if I make this choice, it pleases them, even if it pisses them off for the final result. But it also pleases me in what, like, something innovative, something fresh.
To me, I also rate this film high because it's almost like a hug from the great when I look at something like this, and then compare it to like, so who this time, and we have. Probably the most controversial. No, we have. I mean, I'm not calling us anybody, but for people who have seen the movie, our movie, we have the most controversial cut of all time, which is the tram. You know, or the El Paso streetcar. And that one is so divisive that either people who feel like I understand what you're going for cinematically and it makes sense. It works perfect because it's a real world thing that's happening and it concretes the whole story from it being that just this like cinematic story to like it's real. It's the world, but also the world's bigger than them. Like it does much.
Lo and behold, that's the sequence most people talk about when they walk out of the theater.
Yeah, and
that's what we got.
Everybody else is like, "What's going on?" Like,
good.
Yeah, like why are you?
So many. How many people did we have trying to talk us out of that?
No,
sequence?
and not only that, but also the music choice. That cut. The audio cut where it's like.
Hey, that was a fuck up, right? You're fixing that.
No, everybody. It's like, everybody's like telling us like, oh, it's good, but I think they might have messed up the audio because the audio is like, it cuts there and it's like.
How do you feel about that?
This is a hug.
Yeah, it's hard not to. It is a hug. I know what you mean because it's saying like, look, man, I trust cinema. I trust cinema to cinema. You know, even if I'm the vessel, I trust cinema to cinema, and I'm gonna make this choice to my intention as a storyteller. My intention is like, I'm going to make you feel uneasy. I'm going to abruptly cut this music cue off. You know why? Because nobody cuts Sinatra off. You know, it's Sinatra. You don't cut him off. You let the boy sing. And you know what I mean? But I'm going to cut him off because usually you hear Sinatra in this like restaurant setting and if I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere.
Listen the whole way through.
It's Sinatra. You pour a whiskey, you listen to the song and you enjoy it. But in this case, the juxtaposition of the image on the screen, which is a guy jerking off, set to Sinatra's "The Best Is Yet to Come" wordplay, and then finally on the question, we're going to cut you off in that moment, and then we're going to revisit that on the major cut that everybody had a problem with, which was the balconies. We're going to let this thing play out, and then the music cuts off, and again, it's these things of like. We were so intentional with the score, like it was based on the "In the Mood for Love" score. So and also we were so intentional with like we're gonna make this thing be so introspective, and it's gonna be like a chess game. That's what the music is gonna make you feel like you're playing chess because they're playing emotional chess.
All I could hope for is that when people see that film, they see that. The eyebrow cue, that little cue, that shows that we know how to play the game. We know how to use the rules.
Right.
We know how to
break them too.
Yeah,
that's
and
the whole point of
that wasn't a mistake. It was breaking the rules to do something, as opposed to like a fuck up, and it's hard to communicate that.
For any filmmakers out there who like are afraid of like. First of all, don't be afraid to learn the rules. Don't be that guy. You're not Jean-Luc Godard in film school in your freshman year. I mean, I hope you are, but you're probably not. No, not even Jean-Luc Godard was that. He was a film critic for 10 years before he became a filmmaker. So don't be afraid to learn the rules so that you can break them. And the reason I say that is because, and I'll kind of end with this before I get into the quotes. We had a friends and family screening of the film. I think everybody here was there. Were you there, Costello?
I saw it at the
Plaza.
Yeah.
Well, we had a test screening before that. Let's put it that way, and it was like cast, crew, whatever, and
my mom
and your mom's, and I invited Eller. I invited Eller to come down. Eller Coltrane, star of our film, and Eller's sitting right next to me. I have my wife on one side, and I have Eller on the other side. And we're watching the film. Eller's never seen a frame of this film.
No way.
He had never seen a frame.
Wait a minute, really?
He had never seen a frame. Why would he? Like,
I don't know. I thought he saw it before.
No, he'd never seen a frame. So we're gonna screen it. I think I might have sent it after that screening to both actors. Like I emailed it because Jessica wasn't able to make it down. She had just had a baby. But
wow,
he had never seen a frame, and I got Eller sitting here, and
you're holding his hand,
and I'm holding his hand,
and tell your wife to go.
No, but look, at the end of the day, they trusted you to make this film, and on top of that, we don't get really. I don't really get into my head about this because I'll get into my head about it. This man has worked with some of my heroes. You know what I mean? This guy has worked consistently with Richard Linklater and Ethan Hawke and Patricia Arquette. Like he's worked with some of the greats, man, people who we love and admire. And he knows what real top-notch storytelling looks like.
Exactly.
And I remember doing the director thing, right? Like screening, because I've screened the film a million times.
And your peripheral.
And my peripheral's on Eller. And naturally, my peripherals on Eller, my earbuds are on the crowd
to see
if I'm getting the laughs or we're getting the gasps. And the minute the eyebrow happens, he grabs me like this. Like grabs me in the theater in my seat and shakes me. He's like, fuck yeah. Like he does that. He does one of those. And again, it's just like, right. And then
you loved your choice on that.
And then the film ends, and then the beat of the credits come in. And then he gets my hand, like he shakes my hand, and he's just like, good fucking job, dude. Like that was it. That was it. But I was more concerned of the eyebrow thing. Yes, that worked. That worked so well. That worked so fucking well. Because I'm willing to bet that as an actor, he probably didn't even remember that.
No, I was about to say like he's gonna be a big critic. Like he's gonna be like, that could be. For him to say he liked it, dude.
But again, for me, it's that
as long as the director's happy.
Yeah.
As long as the director's happy.
But again, he had Richard Linklater tell him like, hey, that worked really well. Good job, kid. Like whatever, right? Or vice versa. Like he's able to go to a screening at Cannes and watch people react to a Richard Linklater film where he performed in. So for him to give me that validation as an actor, as somebody who's worked with some of the greats,
it's like reaction in the moment.
Because dude, I would have been fine if he would have been like, cool man, see ya, good shit, deuce. He's been on the Richard Linklater set. What the fuck do I know?
That's what you would have taken it,
Yeah, I would have been like, it's all right, man. We're good.
Right.
I have no resentment because we're a bunch of kids running around doing films.
Right.
But for him to give me the respect of like, from the get-go, signing on to do a picture with us, trusting us to like not give a fuck about what this thing is doing, and then getting all the way to like, holy fucking shit. And if you know Eller's a very grounded person.
Yeah, very quiet to
He's
himself.
very quiet, keeps to himself. He just tries to do his thing. very poetic, very introspective.
Yeah.
So when he outlandishly does something, it means something.
I mean, for a director, that's what you want.
So,
right?
yeah. So as a storyteller, as a director, going back to that feeling of the hug from a Godard for something like Breathless, where he's not being so precious about the technique because the technique has led to dullness. So if we can get rid of technique and remake technique and do something special and do some, even if it just jolts you, what the fuck was that cut? It jolted you into paying attention. It jolted you into talking about it.
I'm into that jolt.
And Breathless has that in spades, man. So let me read something for you guys.
You read up.
I'll read a couple things.
It's Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, so Dr. Seuss.
Can you rap it?
Yeah. This is Francois Truffaut's autobiography, The Films in My Life. And like I told you guys, Francois Truffaut was
Such
a
a poetic
co-writer, on this. I mean, he wrote the treatment. So he says, never mind. Today I am going to sing the praises of Jean-Luc, who makes films just as I do, except he makes twice as many. When I was a film critic, I wanted above all to convince. Probably because having no idea of the real problems a filmmaker faces, I was instinctively trying to convince myself, first of all, about what was good and what was not. I shall never try to communicate in writing to those who do not feel the physical joy and the physical pain which certain moments about Breathless caused me. The sheer unreality, deliberately or not, of certain cinematic styles can be seductive, but it leaves us ambivalent. The most powerful reality, on the other hand, can seduce us momentarily, but leave us ultimately hungry. A film like My Life to Live or Breathless pulls us continuously to the ends of the abstract and then limits us to the concrete. The movement is undoubtedly what creates its emotion. Cinema that moves us, that's what interests and fascinates us, no matter whether emotion is created scientifically as Hitchcock or whether it is simply born out of the artist's ability to communicate emotionally as Rossellini and Godard. There are films one can admire and yet do not invite you to follow. Why pursue it? These are not the best films. The best films open doors. They support our impression that cinema begins and begins again with them.
Nice.
That's Truffaut.
Beautiful.
Who, again, has made such great cinema like 400 Blows, like Day for Night, like Jules and Jim. So many great films. And then I'll read this. This is from the Criterion essay book of Breathless. But this section of the book is Godard in his own words, right?
Okay.
And these are taken from excerpts or interviews when Breathless came out, 1960. So he says, he's talking about what I talked to you guys about earlier, just to give you guys some context. He's talking about Cannes and how they were pissed because we were shitting on them as film critics and they didn't want to let our films in. And then when they did, it was like a kind of a fuck you to them. So this is what he says about that. He says, we won the day in having it acknowledged in principle that a film by Hitchcock, for example, is as important as a book by Aragon. Film auteurs, thanks to us, have finally entered the history of art.
Hell yeah.
But you whom we attack have automatically benefited from the success. And we attack you for your betrayal because we have opened your eyes and you continue to keep them closed. Each time we see your films, we find them so bad, so far aesthetically and morally from what we had hoped, that we are almost ashamed of our love for cinema.
Damn!
We cannot forgive you for never having filmed girls as we love them, boys as we see them every day, parents as we despise or admire them, children as they astonish us or leave us indifferent. In other words, things as they are. Today, victory is ours. It is our films that will go to Cannes to show that France is looking good. Cinematographically, that's a big word, speaking. Next year, it will be the same again. You may be sure of that. 15 new, courageous, sincere, lucid, beautiful films will once again bar the way to conventional productions. For although we have won the battle, the war is not yet over.
Bro.
The last thing he says is, in a word, you don't know how to create cinema because you no longer even know what it is.
Yo.
Wow.
This was Godard.
That's
Oh my God.
heavy.
It's heavy-handed, but it's also not just judging Cannes, but the industry.
Yeah.
Like you guys are fucking it up for the rest of us, and we're not going to allow that to happen. It's so punk rock of them, man. Like, that's what the new wave was. Like, society and the leadership of cinema, if you will, we're going to go totally against that. And we're going to make our own rules, and we're going to make our own films. And these dudes probably would have been happy with 5 people watching their films in a little art house cinema, you know, in the shittiest slot of the day, because they made cinema and people are watching it. And those people are going to go to a cafe next door and be like, what the fuck was that? Like, that was crazy. How did you like, hey, that was great. And that, I don't know about that. You know, like, that's, they were giving cinema CPR. That's just such a beautiful sentiment. And it really started here.
For sure.
It started with Breathless. It started with the 400 Blows. It started with the French New Wave. And paying homage again to the radicals of Italian neorealism and people like that taking risks so that cinema could be something different. And I love that he pinpointed on the word auteurs, because we're about to get into auteurs months. And why is that so important? Because it gives the voice to the director. It allows the director to be the author of the film, where before it was heavy-handed on the script or heavy-handed on what the studio wanted or whatever. An auteur will leave their mark not just on their film, but on every film, every film moving forward. So I love that he talks about that, because it's kind of true. Before the 1960s, before the late 50s, early 60s, I don't think cinema would have been talked about as a high art.
Sheesh.
I think it would have been talked about as a vaudeville act. I think it would have been talked about as the weekend thing to do in the 50s.
It was also...
but will it have been in a museum?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I think it's because, again, the whole idea of like what they thought films could be was cheap entertainment. They were like, if you can't afford to go to the opera or a play, well, then you film it. And then basically you could pay less money to go and watch this thing that could just be replayed. But it was seen cheap, like the whole Nickelodeon. Yeah. It's just like you're capturing something that's just there
for a nickel.
As opposed to like them and this saying there's so much control we have and there's so much manipulation we do, and we're not just giving you life. Like anybody could give you life in different ways. We're giving you art. We touched this and molded it. Minor deviation. I was talking to he works at the courthouse, but he's an artist. He came to the bar the other day, and like Eddie was telling me that he put up this piece in a room. And all it is this, like, it looks like it's football shaped, and it's this black sheet of metal, and it's all crumpled in, and it takes up like the space of like a wall, and it's gigantic. And my question to him was like, well, what's the, like, my question was, how do you know it was done? Because it's just this bent up piece of metal that looks kind of like a football, and it's just hanging there, and it's gigantic. And it took him like a long time before he answered me, because at first he was like, well, I wasn't trying to get it done. Yeah. And he's like, and like, almost he looked at me like, what are you asking? Like, what the fuck? And then later on, he broke it down, and he's like, this is how much energy could I put into something? You know, he says, this originally was just a square sheet of metal that I banged and I bashed, and I added all my energy until I was exhausted. And I don't care if I woke up the next day and I was like, I'm going to go back at this fucking thing, and just punching it and like throwing everything into it until it was finally there. And I mean, anybody could say like, oh, anybody could do that. Right. But manipulating something normal, manipulating something to turn it into art, I feel like that's what you're seeing these films do. It's saying, sure, we could just give you it. We could just record life. We could make it pretty and all that. But the fact that we're manipulating raw matter to make you think and make you feel, and that's art. You know?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And a lot of art you'll never get. It's something that you'll be thinking about for the rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you do get it, maybe you get it 15 years after. Maybe you get it after you have a child. Maybe you get it after you've been married, or maybe whatever. You know, you just, that's how art works. It's how you process life, and this cinema certainly is doing that. Any rating changes, gentlemen?
I always feel like I'm the one that changes. I mean, it's because after I hear you guys, man, you guys changed my perspective, man. I mean, I wish you guys could do commentary while I'm watching it.
You don't like that we do that, man.
I know, because I want to see, but
No,
I'm
but
kidding.
that's-
I'm kidding.
it's very
It's 'cause
eye-opening, very...
there's so many different ways to look at it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's why we it's great when we start with the ratings and we see who doesn't like it and who likes it, because
Exactly.
even any one of our perspectives, if left in a little capsule, like in a vacuum, we probably would just either love it too much to the point of it being pretentious, or we would hate it to the point of not understanding it.
That's
and
an
we all
interesting-
find balance.
That's
you
an
know?
interesting perspective of it being in a vacuum, because let's say you watch this on your own, Gusto, or anybody. Let's say anybody watches Breathless on their own, and they walk away like, I didn't fucking get it, and then they never revisit it because of that negative feeling that they first got.
Yeah.
In the vacuum, you'll be exposed, or you'll think that good cinema is bad cinema because you didn't process it enough.
Exactly.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa. Yeah, you love it so much and you didn't really think about it. You kind of just took it at surface level or whatever.
Yeah.
But by having this conversation, it almost speeds up that process because we will have
love
all the
it.
different perspectives we get.
I think that's
Love
why
it.
it's like you say, the kitchen sink film,
And I
right?
can't emphasize it enough. I
The
love it.
thing where I think every piece of art needs to almost have a communal aspect to it, because
Absolutely.
it was made by somebody having a human experience trying to express that. So it can only be decrypted by us each going through our own human experiences.
I'm genuinely shocked by the kitchen sink thing. Genuinely shocked of how much it has influenced my films. Like when I read that in one of the essays, kitchen sink cinema, and how this, it was like the critic in Ratatouille. When he like takes a bite of the ratatouille and then brings him back to his childhood, like that's how I was. I was like,
is that just like because
kitchen sink cinema? Pew! And then I went back to who was it this time? Kitchen sink scene. They're against the fucking kitchen sink, talking about life and love, and I'm like, holy fucking shit! Like that's.
I was even thinking more
nuts.
contemporary. Like I know when you saw Nora, you talk about how, with you and Sandra, like you just kind of held her tighter and you just didn't trust people, and it's just like. That film could only like breathe as long as you were with somebody, because if you're in isolation, like, I mean, I don't know, like it's hard for me to rewatch a lot of the films we talk about on this podcast because I'm scared of watching it alone. And again, having this like vacuum perspective where I'm like, oh, damn it. Like people aren't here. Like I feel safer watching it, knowing everybody else is around, not because I'm looking to be like, is that cool?
No,
not for that.
Amongst cinephiles, though, too,
No, but
right?
even peel back the curtain. I went to go watch like the Minecraft movie the other day, and getting people who were like, "What a dumpster of a film!" Like, why did I just watch Brain Rot for like 90 minutes, and then I heard people say it was great and all this kind of stuff. Not to say it's
I
a
love that
cinematic masterpiece.
juxtaposition. You watched the Minecraft movie before watching Breathless.
Yes.
No, but I know what he's getting
It's
at.
great. No, but I love it. I really do love that perspective. I just mean amongst cinephiles because there's times where you come and like I showed Nora and my parents and they're like, "What the fuck is
No,
this?"
I had that with The Lighthouse. Like I was like, at the time, I felt like when I saw The Lighthouse, I'm like, I haven't felt so inspired in such a long time.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
And then you show it to people, but then they'll watch something like, The Avengers, and not to say it's a bad movie, but to say like that's what they needed, and that's not what I needed.
Exactly.
And then I remember having for such a long time the fear of like, now I can't just watch movies. Now I can't just enjoy shit. Like especially like when we go to film school and all that.
Yeah.
I don't know how much everybody else gets it, but I was so stressed out at like, they're like, why don't you watch movies? Like movies are fun. I'm like, I can't because you watch them.
I
watch
had
them
that conversation
differently
with
now,
my
for sure.
brother because my brother and I we'd grow up watching what we thought was highbrow cinema, and I think that
Walter Mitty.
Jean-Claude Van Damme, baby.
I think the peak of highbrow cinema for my brother and I was like fucking Shawshank Redemption. Not
Hey,
a
bro,
bad,
that's a good movie.
not a bad film,
Bro.
but it ain't Breathless, son. It just isn't.
In the mood for love.
And I remember having these conversations with my brother when I was in film school, and like we were being exposed to more great cinema, and he'd be like, I think we talked about Shawshank and it was on. I was like, okay, that's cool. And he was like, what do you mean? Like it's Shawshank. Like we love Shawshank. I was like, I still love Shawshank. It'll hold a place. It'll hold a place in my heart the way Forrest Gump does. I love Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Or Walter Mitty.
No, Walter Mitty's a bit different because it won't sit there the way like a Forrest Gump will for me. But my point with it is that like I would have these conversations, and he was like, he told me that you're becoming a fucking snob because you're in film school. Like that's the difference between you and I. Is I'm watching movies and you're watching other movies that you're being told are great. And it's like, sure, that's fair. Someone else is telling you, go watch this movie because it's great. But you start developing your voice when you start figuring out if it's great or not.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what these guys do, right? So, Breathless.
Mine definitely goes up. I'll put it up to like an 8.2.
8.2.
I mean, this French New Wave, for sure, that experimental, trying to push the envelope.
Yeah.
Telling these critics, or them being critics to the big studios, being like, yo, you guys are messy. No, I'm embarrassed what you said. I'm embarrassed to be a cinephile.
I'm almost embarrassed for my love of cinema.
That
because
hit me
of
right there, dude. I was like, yeah, I really understand. Oh, I'm starting to understand French New Wave.
And when you start processing that sentiment, you start thinking to yourself, am I living in that headspace? Because you go and tell people, oh, I'm a filmmaker. And they think, oh, Minecraft. Or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like they think whatever's out now and popular.
Right.
And you're like, no, don't associate me with that.
I love Nacho Libre.
Yes. It's like, no, just that's. Anyways, 8.2 though. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's
man. I love you guys' perspective, man. It's like you said, I watch most of the films by myself, so it's kind of like a vacuum of my thoughts.
That's why, like, you always come to us like, have you seen it? I need to tell somebody.
That's why I always start my conversations like, have you seen
anything new?
Yeah, because I want to see like, did you see what I saw? Because I need a perspective, man.
I'm gonna have to have a long conversation with you guys. I had this conversation with Eric a few nights ago. Because we're not covering it. I don't think they're one of our tours. But I finally saw No Country for Old Men. I'd never seen it before.
Dude, man. I haven't seen it in a while.
I've never seen it before, so it was my first time seeing it. I liked it.
Invite.
I liked it.
Oh, I don't like
I thought it was a little overrated. I enjoyed it.
We need to have a conversation.
But it's definitely not my favorite Coen Brothers film.
Call it.
Huh?
Call it.
Call it what?
Yeah,
you can only call it.
The flip.
Oh, yeah.
I can't call it. You've been blazing your whole
great
life.
scene.
Fuck yeah, bro.
Great sections. But I'm kind of walking away from this thing
Let's
like...
do that whole scene, bro. I'll be
I don't know what you mean.
I didn't realize how much of a police procedural it was. I didn't realize that.
What do you mean?
Well, look, okay, a typical police procedural is like you follow the cop trying to find the robber and whatever. This is in the robber's perspective, right? And the guy who kind of stumbles on a fucking crime scene and finds a bag of money.
Yeah.
But like, it's more in his perspective than it is like Tommy Lee Jones's perspective, or at least equally. Maybe a little more. I think it's like 60-40. It's 40 Tommy Lee, 60 Josh Brolin. But I didn't realize again how much of a procedural it was. Like how linear and like how like this happens and then this happens and then this happens and then this happens. Movie ends. I thought it was a little more like, I don't know. What made it interesting, if Javier Bardem's character didn't exist, that movie would have sucked.
Oh, for real? But that's the whole theme. He's the perfect villain. He's
great. He's a great character, but what's beyond him? What's the draw? Like, I couldn't help but think, and granted, it's my fault because I saw Hell or High Water first, but I was like, the fuck? This feels like Hell or High Water.
No. Okay, yeah, no. You
because
too late.
Hell or High Water came later, right? But anyways, I thought it was a touch overrated. That's just my take.
Comment if you disagree or agree.
I'm sure the
on this
people
film
will.
As well.
Eric lost his shit when I told him that because he loves it.
What?
Yeah, but anyways, yeah. Again, that's the point, right? I'll come and be like, "Have you guys seen it? Because am I crazy? I think it's a little overrated."
No, yeah.
But anyways, that's what we love about this podcast.
Why we do this?
Next week. Any other rating changes, by the way?
Baby.
9.7. The only reason I knocked off the.
You were already at 9.7.
Yeah, no, I know, but I never explained like usually we talk about like what is it missing to be a 10.
Oh, right.
I think the biggest thing that's knocking it right now is the fact that every film student just wants to call their shit French New Wave because I
see what you're saying. That's not the film's fault, though.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Yeah, because if this film didn't exist, then film students would be trying to do other shit. But no, it's too late. It's too late. They ruined it.
That's fair.
They ruined it.
And what's funny is that those film students never even seen Breathless. They saw the films that Breathless inspired.
Yeah.
That is.
Like, I see so many film students like love and like obsess. Even CK loves Lahaim or whatever. And
it was.
Come on. You could tell off the bat that that's.
What are we doing?
You know what? There's we've talked about it before. The lovely conversation of like. You're running a film class, like a film review class. Is this semester 1 Or is this like end of semester, beginning of the semester? And I think when you watch this one,
Breathless.
this is late. This is
Breathless is either late semester or the reading you do after you took the class. Like,
yeah, no, because it's so like if we had started the film podcast with this, I wouldn't have known what the fuck to do with it. It's like
I'm glad that I felt that way about the first Godard film I saw. I told you guys, like, I saw 2 or 3 things I know about her.
2 or 3.
I'm like, what the fuck is this?
You're like,
what? I felt stupid, man.
You're the astronaut that we keep sending into space, and you come back with moon rocks. You're like, I don't know what the fuck, but
they look nice.
But see them up.
Yeah, no, you straight up do. Like, I feel like with us, we're like going into the museum and being like, oh yeah, I've heard of that, I've heard of this, and you come back, you're like, I don't know what I found, but we need that. We need this exploration of like. And
then like I jump over the monolith and dun dun dun.
Yeah, no, dude, it's crazy because there's major cinephiles like yourself,
like ourselves.
No, like yourself, but that really dive into cinema to look at everything. You start to see like what current films are modeling themselves after, and it's amazing to see like the elements that we're like, that's so innovative, that's so interesting. Like we'll watch like something like Birdman that I remember really inspired me, or if I watch something like Her, but then you go back and look at like their visual references, and you're like, fuck, they invented it, like they were the ones doing it, and then you realize like that's all it is, and it's so hard to create something new, but also pay homage to the people who are inventing.
Austin and I have consistently been watching the studio, the new Apple
I want to
series.
get into it so
It's
bad.
fucking great, dude.
Apple. I'm gonna have to.
It's so fucking great.
Figure out a way.
It's so good. Austin will get it for you. It's
No,
so fucking great.
It is good though. It's not just
great, dude.
overhyped.
No, it's just. I mean, especially for us, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's for us.
Scorsese.
It's just
It's
to me,
for us.
Seth Rogen was kind of like, but
Oh
he's
no, dude, he's great. You don't see Rogen in that. I don't know about you, Austin. I don't see Rogen in that shit.
good.
Like,
He's the studio guy, right?
yeah, he's the head of the studio,
Right. Oh, I know that.
and the other guy, the guy that's in Neighbors with him,
Yeah.
the buddy, the funny buddy neighbor guy.
Not Zach, right?
No, the other like doofus that works
Oh
with
yeah,
him.
I don't know his name. Yeah.
He's the second lead in the studio, and he's fucking great, dude.
I like the whole storyline of it. I'm
Ike Barinholtz, that guy.
Yeah, exactly him.
He
Yeah, I don't
plays
know.
like the second lead basically, and he's fucking terrific, dude.
Do they give you the whole season, or you're just
No,
waiting?
it's episode by episode.
No!
Yeah, I think they're on episode 4 right now, or tonight or tomorrow night is episode 4 or 5 drops.
This is
I
my
think it's
type of
5.
story,
But
or-
the last one, dude, is based on like. It's a parody of Chinatown in a very special way with Olivia Wilde. It's so fucking great, dude. But anyways, we're talking about that because even in that last episode with Olivia Wilde about Chinatown and certain things, I won't spoil it, but but she says that they're constantly saying in the show like, good artists borrow, great artists steal.
We'll say it again.
Good artists borrow, great artists steal.
Great artists steal.
Yeah. And again, when you see these modern films like either straight up fucking steal something great, and those I'll add an amendment to that statement.
Oh yeah.
Good artists borrow,
already,
great artists steal, fantastic artists steal and emulate in like sprinkles.
Little wordy, but I like it.
They like use intentionality with stealing.
Yeah,
Or maybe that's the amendment.
Yeah.
Great artists steal with intention.
Ooh.
Yeah.
There we go.
The great artists steal with intention. And that's really the bit is like, if I'm going to make good cinema, I'm going to take this moment from here, this moment from there, this cut,
What was,
this flash of
that's-
light, this like.
That's what I'm learning.
Yeah, like what was the movie? Oh, no shade to it, but
Careful.
it just was nominated for Best Picture this year. Body comes out of the body.
Oh, the substance.
Substance. Like Substance took a lot from The Shining.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, no, and
It
that's
borrowed.
the thing. They borrowed.
They borrowed.
They borrowed shots, and it was like, oh, that's cool, but
Yeah. But they borrow.
Coming from people that didn't like The Shining, of course
the
they're gonna say that, huh?
No,
But
no,
then
no.
you get,
Right,
but then
comment,
you get
comment.
Nora. And again, I've had a conversation. We were having a conversation with our fellow producers. Shout out to Francis and Jason. And
Shout out
we're
to
like
Francis.
talking about Nora. And Francis, we hadn't gotten her perspective. We're like, what do you think about Nora? And she was like,
From Francis.
that was great, but not Best Picture great.
Yeah,
And I was
just a lot of
like,
boob.
I thought the
Just-
same thing. I'm with
But
her.
I just need a screen like fucking
No, I know,
Knights
I know.
of Kyberia for you guys because you'll know why Nora's so great.
I liked it.
It's so hard that people don't understand how good
I feel so misunderstood, man, because it's like nobody's like
living in a world full of.
The only people I know that are losing their shit over Nora is like the only person I've connected with. I mean, I know Austin and the law like really did love it, but like
I liked it too. Just not.
liked it. John Waters fucking was the only one that like validated like yes, Nora was fucking amazing, and
he really did
like,
give it props.
He really like loved it.
Yeah.
But anyways, it just good cinema begets good cinema, and I think it's special. So I appreciate the sentiment on being able to decipher how people are being inspired by good cinema, or like fucking tearing it to pieces. So. We'll see what the trajectory goes to. Next week, we're going to close off our International Cinema Month with
Don't.
Mr. Charles Horak's pick. He'll be our special guest. We're closing off with him, closing off with a bang. Chuck is just become a really good friend of ours. He's been a mentor of mine for a while now. And aside from anything, he's just like one of the best like cinephiles I know.
Dude, he kind of looks like J.J. Arms. J.J. Arms, remember the?
Yeah, he looks like J.J. Arms. He looks like who's the guy that's in charge of all the DC films right now? James Gunn.
James Gunn.
He looks like
like an Asian version.
Mm-hmm. We're talking about Seijun Suzuki's Branded to Kill.
Oh, I've heard so much about this one.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting, and this is Chuck's pick, and none of us have seen this one, so very excited to see it. We'll close off our International Cinema with that.
Oh, I like it.
And then we're going to jump into the cinema of David Fincher. I think we're going to kick off with Fight Club, if I'm not mistaken. So stay tuned for that.
First rule, Fight Club.
Oh, shit, we're going to kick off with a film. But let us know what you guys think about Breathless. Do you guys agree? Do you guys disagree?
Check it out, man.
A good reason to check it out. By the way, a good reason to check it out right now. Richard Linklater just finished shooting his new film. And the film is about the making of Breathless.
No way.
A narrative film about the making of Breathless.
No
starring
shit.
Zoe Deutsch as the American actress character.
oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Like, actually?
That's gonna be,
Yes, like actually, like they just wrapped filming.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I remember seeing like on her Instagram, like she went short hair and blonde, and I'm like, the fuck is going on with you? And then I started reading Linklater just shot a Breathless making of film, and I'm like, holy fucking shit,
Makes
I'm so
sense.
excited. So yeah,
When's it slated to release?
I'm
Yeah.
not sure, to be honest with you. I don't know if we can find that, Austin. I don't know if that information's out
It's
yet.
shot already and it's in post.
It's shot already. They're
Should
in
be
post
within a
as far
year.
as I know, but it's a Linklater
Well, if they have a
Linklater release. But I would assume it's slated to release later this year.
yeah, right.
Probably like a
my
winter
God.
film or something like that.
What can people?
What? You can't what?
It's at Cannes.
Oh, at Cannes? It's gonna release at Cannes? Yeah. Holy fucking shit, that's awesome. I didn't see that in the announcement. What's
When's
it
Cannes?
called?
It's always on September now, or something like that.
It's right at the beginning of award season. So I think you're right. I think it is September. Nouvelle Vague. What does that translate to?
November.
Who don't see.
But anyway,
it's French. But
what can people expect from this one for next week?
I have no fucking idea. I've never seen it.
that's-
None of us have
that's
seen
right.
it.
None of us have seen it.
Just expect that a good cinephile and film critic
Yeah,
knows
Chuck,
what
Chuck knows what he's talking about for sure.
it translates to. New wave. That's awesome.
Wow.
That's cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's
All right, cool.
cool.
Well, so yeah, go watch Breathless. So you can watch the Linklater film that was going to release in Cannes.
Yeah.
Next week, Brandon to Kill. Stay tuned for that. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you guys want to cover any other films. And prepare yourselves, because the next 5 months after this month will be nothing but auteur cinema.
come on.
It's
Curated.
it's kind of
Come
a great thing, like to go from the French New Wave and auteur cinema and how
yeah.
kind of that started auteur cinema to like us being able to cover a different auteur every month, curated by each of us.
Yeah, I think like something I'm excited about is that we've always, like when we started the podcast, we were like, every episode we'll each get a turn. This time it's a month dedicated to like what we've each wanted to talk about.
Exactly, what we've
and
grown up with,
it's
kinda-
got a big surprise.
Yeah.
We're talking about this and it's like months
Yeah,
later,
yeah.
but it's going to lead to a big surprise that we're super excited to talk about
Very
with a
excited
lot
to
of
talk about.
You just got to tune
special
in.
guests. And yeah, no, we're excited.
We're pumped.
So-
It's going to be a good set of few months. So
Just keep tuning in.
Yeah.
We love you. We appreciate you guys.
please make sure to share, like, subscribe. Thank you for tuning into the WatchTower Film Podcast this week. We'll see you next week. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Good night, everybody.
And you know this guy loves you.